Okay, we are making beef tallow. This is beef fat from a brisket, and over here I've got the beef fat from another separate brisket. Thawing it partially, and we are going to grind it until we get all of that fat ground up, and then we're going to render it. And once we render it, we're going to have beef tallow for recipes, just like you would use, or just like you would make lard from pork fat. It's weird doing this with my left hand. As interesting as this is, it's like watching grass grow or paint dry. I'm going to skip to the end of the grinding. See you then. All right, well, I said I was going to skip to the end, but I'm in mid-process. By the way, as I was cutting these chunks up, Frost got one that fell to the floor, and that's part of the rules. What falls to the ground goes to the hound. So anyway, what I did was I thawed these part way, okay? And that's important. You don't want to thaw it completely, because when you try to grind it, if it's really, warm or room temperature, it gets really gummy and hard to grind. So you either want to freeze it part way or freeze it all the way like I've done, storing the trim from a couple of briskets in the freezer, and then you want to thaw it halfway or part way. It's hard to cut up, it's pretty stiff stuff with a good sharp knife, and it doesn't have to be a giant one like that, but you can cut it up, and then it makes it a lot easier, a lot better for the process when you grind it. All right, moving on. Oh, there went another one. I better be careful. The dog is going to get way too fat, and she's already a little weight challenged. She doesn't mind it though. Is that yummy? Okay, done with the grinding, the chopping and the grinding. All of the parts there are ready to be washed, and oops. There we go. All right, so you start with a little bit of water. That's 1 cup. I don't know, this may be too much fat for the 1 cup of water, but I'm gonna scoop that all into there, and we're going to start rendering it. The reason that water is important is because if you've ever made candy or anything like that, and you monitor the temperature, you can see that when the water is in it, it can't get above 212 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Because that's the temperature that water boils, or maybe slightly over. But as soon as the water is gone, the temperature starts to rise, and that's how it gets to your soft crack and your hard crack stage and all that, because now you're not boiling water anymore, you're boiling sugar or whatever. Well, it's the same with this fat. So if we add the water, that's going to keep it from cooking the fat or burning the fat. Okay, it's going to keep it from darkening the fat. We're going to end up with a pure, tallow that's not already, cooked beyond the smoke point, or near to the smoke point. Okay. Now the great thing is you can just render this in a skillet, and what you're left with is these amazing little crispy things. You add a little salt. Oh my gosh, it's amazing, but not good for you. I understand, but this is going to make a better product for using for cooking. Okay, so here we go with the beef tallow. I'm going to add that to the pot. We're gonna start cooking it down. All right. Okay, I've only had it cooking for long enough to do the dishes, from my or to clean up the grinder. But look how much it's already rendered down. It looked like it wasn't doing anything. I could hear it bubbling under there, but I stirred it, and as soon as I did, all the fat went down into what's already rendered. And so this is gonna render out really, really, really well, I believe. So let's see how the rest of the process goes. Okay, it's only been about 20 or 30 minutes, and this is still bubbling. But I believe that most of the beef fat is rendered out. Look at that. These are just the crumbles from the fat, and of course little bits of meat that I ground up. Okay. What's so great about grinding it is that it didn't take long at all to render this fat. I mean, some people do this. They cut it up in chunks. You can watch other YouTube videos. You cut it up into chunks as small as you can, but you end up rendering it all day long. And I thought this was going to take a lot longer, but after like 20-30 minutes, it looks pretty good to me. It is bubbling. And so what does that mean, and why do I care? The reason it's bubbling is because there's still water in there. If you fry meat, the reason it bubbles when it fries is because there's water that interacts with the hot grease, and it bubbles. It steams immediately, right? Because the grease is a lot more hot than the water. And in this case, I've got it on pretty low. Got it about between a 3 and a 4. I had it higher than that just to get it to render down a little faster. But anyway, there's still water in there. Why do I care? Because when I pour this out into another vessel and strain it, oh, look at that. It's really simmering. When I strain it out into a bowl, there's going to be water at the bottom of that, right? But the water and the fat are going to separate. And what that's going to mean is I don't want the water in with the fat when I put it into jars and store it. So I'll show you how to deal with that. All right, here we go. Okay, so what do we got here? I've got a quart measuring cup, my sieve, and a bowl, and then I've got my fat. All right, so I'm just going to start dipping it out here. Try to make a huge mess, although that's really just my nature, just to make a huge mess. Somebody can attest to that. Man, look at how it's rendered out already. There's nothing but little grape nuts of fat there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to press that a little bit just to get the fat goodness out of there. And then I'm going to dump that out on a paper plate. Hang on. Should have had that already. Uh-oh. Pause it. Okay. So, we got an important call, very important call right then. But this is the last of it right here. And I am just pressing out the fat out of this these ground up bits. All right. And you can see it's cloudy there, especially at the end here, because it's got water in it. You can see the bubbles of water. Okay. And here's the rest. Here's the rest of the fat. All right. So I'm going to I may heat this a little bit to try to get the water to separate more. But then I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna put it in a glass jar. You know, whatever's on the bottom, I'm gonna suck it out with a turkey baster and put it in the jar, because the water will be on the bottom. And then from there, I can see what I'm drawing out and leave just that. Okay, and there will be a little bit of fat left in the water, but what's left here will be all fat, and that'll be good for jarring up and using for beef tallow. All right, I'm reheating it, getting some of the water out of it. I don't know, there's nothing that I looked at that tells me that I should do this, but I feel like, I don't know, it felt like the right thing to do. Maybe it will help clarify it some. So we're going to pour it up, or actually I'm going to try to draw off the water from underneath it. I've already turned off the heat, but it's still pretty darn hot. So we're going to go from there. All right, now I'm tilting it to the corner and drawing out everything from the bottom corner. And then you can see there's maybe still a few solids in there. It's really milky because it's water and fat together. But I'm gonna let that settle, and I'll be able to save the fat from that. I think that's probably really mostly fat. And you can see there's a layer there. This is fat, that's water. Okay, so next, after I put that stuff in jars, I'm gonna draw off all the water underneath that. Okay, you can do this also with a gravy separator. All right, but that's it for now. I'll show you the next part in just a few minutes. All right, so we're all set up to jar these up. So here's my fat, okay? And of course I've got more fat there. So what's ideal, in my opinion, is pint jars. And it depends on what works for you. If you use a lot of fat, you know, quart jars might be fine. But pint jars are great. Only I didn't have all that many pint jars, so I'm trying to use pint jars and half pint jars. All right, so this is all there is to it. You put your rendered fat in the jar. Okay, and we're not going to process these like you would other canned foods. I'm not going to put them in the canner. I'm not going to put them in the pressure cooker, okay? Because I'm going to put these in the freezer. And you might be thinking, you know, how are you going to put those in the freezer? Aren't they going to bust? No, because fat does not expand like water does. So it's not going to bust the jars. All right, so I'm going to continue canning these up, and well, you know what? I want you to see this part. Okay, so we've got our fat, and we've got the layer of water underneath it. So I'm going to start drawing. Oh! I'm going to make a mess, but then I'm going to start drawing this off of the bottom. The reason I tilt it is so that I can get that water down in the corner of the measuring cup. By the way, this would make a great, I mean, if you're into saving every little thing, this would be, this would be good for some kind of a soup or even a gravy. Got almost all of it. I'm gonna go one more. All right. And the very last of it has some water in it. I'm going to pour this into a couple of jars. Go ahead and pour it all. There's going to be a little bit of schmutz in the bottom of that, but that's okay. This. Okay, so I started out with probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 pounds of fat, and I got about 1, 2, 3, 4 pints of beef tallow, and I'll explain in a minute what this is really, really good for. But I've got my lids, and as you can see, this one has already been used. You know, I've got a couple of these in here that have already been used. You don't have to use, if you're gonna put them in the freezer, you don't have to use brand new lids, okay? Because we're not processing them. We're not gonna do them like canning. You know, if we were gonna can them, and you can put them in the pressure cooker or in, I'd have to look and see. I don't know if water bath method would be appropriate. Probably not. But if you canned them and processed them in a pressure cooker, you would want to use brand new lids. But I'm just going to put these all in the freezer, and that's going to keep for pretty much indefinitely. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to explain to you some of the things I use the beef tallow for. All right. Okay, I've got 4 pints. All right, 3 pints and 1 and 2 half pints of beef tallow left. All right, and as you can see, you can use, you can use used lids and used jars, and go to the trouble of taking the label off of the jar. But all they have to be is clean, and I did clean these with soap and water and dried them with towel before I filled them. Okay, to conclude the video, this is take 3. You ever go to record your voicemail greetings and you have to do it over and over and over? Anyway, I want to get it right. So here is a jar of the beef tallow. At the bottom here, you can see there, this is the last jar that I poured up, and there's some water and some organic material there. I'm going to put this one in the fridge, and this is going to be the one that I use first. Everything else is pure beef fat, and that water at the bottom is not going to hurt anything. I won't use it when I'm cooking. I'll try to keep that out of stuff so it doesn't, like if you're frying, you don't want water in, right? But anyway, here is a jar that is all beef fat. And as you can see, there's not any water or anything at the bottom. That's pure beef fat. It's delicious. So what do we use it for? Okay, you can use it for any kind of cooking fat, or anywhere you would need cooking fat. You can use it for pie crusts or biscuits. One of my favorite things is deep fried pickles, deep fried or fried zucchini, or fried okra, all those great southern dishes that aren't great for you. But what I use it for most of the time is for smoking a brisket and for cooking chili. When you smoke a brisket, well, look up Jeremy Yoder on YouTube, Mad Scientist Barbecue. He has some videos out there that have to do with beef tallow. I think the first one was The Secret to Aaron Franklin's Brisket. Anyway, check it out. It revolutionized my brisket cooking. It's just the difference is amazing. So I don't want to spoil it for you. You got to check that out. And if you do smoked briskets, you know, Texas style especially, it's amazing. But the other thing is when I make chili. Years ago, you know, when I first started making chili, I realized that my chilies were turning out watery and not really, you know, what I was looking for or hoping for. I like a good thick hearty chili, and I couldn't figure out for a while how to achieve that. Well, along the way, you know, my cooking, you know, learning how to cook, I learned how to make gravies, and I learned how to make a roux to make a gravy or a sauce. You take a fat like beef tallow or lard or you know, even vegetable oil or anything like that, and you heat it up in a skillet, add flour and stir that in and cook it, cook the flour, and then you add that to your drippings and juices from meat that you've cooked or anything like that, and you can make a gravy. So it's a thickening agent. That's what a roux is. Well, anyway, I started making roux and you know, a roux and adding it to my chili, and it makes a huge difference. It revolutionized my chili. I'm not kidding. You should try it out yourself. I'm gonna try to make a video on that and show you guys, you know, my method for cooking chili. But the roux is, you know, it took my chili to the next level, you know, and I really like a thick hearty chili. That was what did it. So anyway, that is my video on beef tallow. All right, so I wanted to just give a shout out to my niece Jessica. She's my nephew's wife, but I still consider her a niece. She is a gravy connoisseur, and she loves stuff like this as well. Also, my sister-in-law Julie, who is into canning and all kinds of pioneering stuff, and so anyway, I love you guys. And to all of the viewers, the very few that will ever discover this video, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and y'all take care.